Hello everyone. This video shows users how to access COVE Editions and make use of its content and tools. There's a second video about COVE Studio, which is where you go to annotate texts, but this video is going to concentrate on Editions, which is COVE's open access publishing and flipped classroom publication space. There are two parts to this video. The first part is oriented especially to students, showing you how to quickly join a class and add content to collective projects. The second half of the video is oriented more to teachers, showing you how to build a group, a classroom, and a collective resource. So students, in order to gain access to COVE Editions, you need to log in. If you have not yet paid for access, we charge just $10, which is a nonprofit to help support the initiative. You simply click on Not a NAFSA Member. You're taken to this page. You can click here for COVE only access, and again, 1 year is just $10. After you pay that amount, you receive a login and password so that you can access COVE Editions. At that point, you need to return to covecollective.org and log in. Specifically, log in with NAFSA. Once you have logged in, your name appears at the top right here. Click on your name in order to access your dashboard. I have a lot of groups because I've been using these tools for a long time. Your page will be a little more blank here. And to join a class, you need only look for it. If it's been recently created, it'll appear at the top here. Otherwise, type in the name that hopefully your professor has told you to look for. Once you've joined the class, you will be asked whether you're fine with having content made available, open access to the world if your class is open to everyone. Some classes may be private. You always have the option, even if you say yes, to keep any content you add to your group private, and that is part of the form that you fill out with each element that you add to a class's timeline or map or gallery. Once you've joined a class, you'll see a page like this one. This is my class from fall 2020. As you join, your name will appear here among the participants, and any collective projects are going to be listed here under galleries, timelines, and maps. Do not click on Create Timeline, Create Map unless you've been told to do so by your teacher, since this creates a new collective project that then appears here. In order to contribute to a group project like these, you need only click on the relevant resource. That takes you to the group timeline. In order to add to your group's timeline, you click on Add Items. In this case, to this chronology. You fill in all of the fields here, including in this case the date range. You can add an image, which is a good idea. And you can also associate your timeline element with a map element, which I'll show you in a second. After you save, your timeline element is added to the collective resource. As you'll see, each of these collective resources has the same mechanism and a very similar looking form, although each is a little different. For example, the map tool allows you to search for a location that you can then add to to your map. You can use find in order to locate the specific geographical location. This is the location of Purdue University where I work, for example. You can, again, associate a map element with a timeline element. So if you have already created a timeline element, you can then find it here and associate it with your map element, and then press save. You can always return to your class by clicking here. Finally, the gallery, as you see, has a very similar interface for uploading images and adding a description of those images. You can quickly see your work by clicking on your name and your activity. So any individual element that you may have added to a gallery, a map, or a timeline has its own unique URL, web page address that you can link to directly. As you see here, we have an element that's part of the collective timeline, but also exists by itself on this page. That's about all you need to know as a student in order to get going on joining a class and contributing to a collective resource, be it a map, timeline, or a gallery. I'm now going to address teachers to show them how to build a group and develop a timeline map or gallery. If you're a teacher developing a class, the first step is to create a class page like this one. To do that, log in, after which you'll see your name appear here on the top right. And what you need to do is create a group. The first time you do this, you need to wait for us to upgrade your permissions, since this is a feature that we make available only to teachers. Once you've been given permission, you simply click on Create Group. You can add as much information as you want here, including inserting images and media, links, and so on. I'm just going to write test for this. You can choose whether your group is public or private. If you would like to keep your group private, I suggest that you email coveeditions@gmail.com, since there are additional steps you will need to take. Once you've created your group, save. As you see, there's an agreement to allow content to be open access, and students also are given this form to fill out. Having said that, students always have the ability to choose to have their content kept private just to the group, which is listed here as your students sign up for your class. This is a bare bones version of a classroom. As you see, all I wrote was test for description. Once you create a map or a gallery or a timeline, those appear below here in galleries, timelines, and maps. The form for creating one is quite simple. It looks very similar to the form that you saw for uploading content. Might as well create one here. You can also very easily draw on existing content. So for example, let's say you're interested in Darwin. You can quickly search here for Darwin elements. As you can see, we clearly designate which elements are vetted. A lot of this content comes from Britain Representation in 19th Century History, which is a peer-reviewed publication. So if I search for Darwin, I see a number of elements here that are vetted, all coming from branch, and also some that are not vetted, since this also shows you content that others have uploaded. I'm going to just choose the vetted content and click Submit. So those elements have now been added to my timeline. I'll save that. As you see, within a minute, we were able to create a snazzy timeline with links to authoritative articles, in this case about Darwin's voyage on the Beagle. They've been already linked with maps that are relevant to that voyage. If you return to your class, you'll see that you now have that collective project, which we just called test here. Students, as they sign up, will appear here and will be able to click your collective resource and add items, their own contributions to your customized timeline by clicking here. I'll show you a completed class so you can see how you can transform this bare bones interface into a more snazzy looking course page. So here's one that has included images. Students have signed up. This was from a class on Leonardo da Vinci from spring 2020. And these are completed resources by my students who did research on Leonardo da Vinci using these resources in preparation for their final research project. If you zoom in, you can see that these elements have been added by students. And you can also see that England is a little bit different. That's because we have added a ordnance survey from the 1880s, so you can see what England looked like at that time. You can easily turn that on and off, so you can go between that layer and Google Map. If we return to our dashboard, we can see what a completed gallery also looks like. Again, this is all content that's been uploaded by students, and you can easily check each individual page tied to an element in the gallery. The student has linked the element with a map, as you can see, and a timeline element. The tools are quite easy to use. Indeed, the hardest part really is just getting all of your students to sign in and join your class. Once they're in, the individual tools are quite easy to use. If you ever have questions, do not hesitate to email coveeditions@gmail.com. That email is monitored by all 6 administrative directors of COVE, as well as myself, and we try to respond as quickly as we can. And remember that at COVE Editions, you have a number of how-to guides. There's a frequently asked questions page. And we have also made available articles about teaching with COVE. For example, Catherine Golden here talks about her lovely use of the gallery for exhibits about Victorian animals or the Bronte sisters. We've also made available teacher resources here, past syllabi from classes that have used the tools. For example, here's my Leonardo da Vinci course, as well as guides created by past teachers, for example, Catherine Golden's guides for her class.